Hello, this is Newsfeed. It's been over a month since Israel's onslaught on Gaza started. Millions trapped in the enclave are living in a humanitarian crisis. It took just a month for the death toll in Gaza to surpass 10,000. Many of these victims were civilians from at-risk groups. Among them, at least 2,250 were women, 4,200 were children, and over 600 of them were the elderly. In the past month, over 26,000 Palestinians have been injured. 2,260 are still missing. Over 1,000 of those missing are children. Since October the 7th, 1.5 million people in Gaza had to abandon their homes. Because of that, some call the ongoing Israeli assault the second Nakba. For reference, Gaza has a population of 2 million people. Among those fleeing their homes, nearly 730,000 took shelter in UN Relief and Works Agency facilities. While we have an idea of their living conditions, UNRWA does not have information on the other half of displaced persons sheltering across the area. Even the UN is failing to support all those refugees, though, and a severe humanitarian crisis is unfolding in Gaza. Inside the UNRWA shelters, 160 people have to share one toilet. And there's only one shower available for 700 people. That's not the worst of it, because even if they have access to certain facilities, they don't have the water to work them. 95% of those in Gaza don't even have access to safe water. Water and sanitation are key to healthcare, and with Israel withholding fuel, 64% of primary health facilities have shut down.
Empty shelves and empty fridges. These empty shelves are red light warning for an upcoming starving crisis to be on the Gaza Strip that is getting closer by the hour. Products you might find are the simple hygiene products, and you might ask why, because there are no water to use them with.
There's no any piece of bread since 4 days in the Gaza city. Since 4 days, there is no clean water to drink in anywhere, because we need electricity to find the water, and there is no water. Even the water that anyone can obtain in Gaza now is not clean, is not drinkable.
فيش مية فيش أكل فيش شرب فيش حياة انظلمنا مظلومين شعب مظلوم أطفال حرام عليكم حرام كفى
Overcrowding, a lack of accessible healthcare, and no clean water is a recipe for disaster. As such, the World Health Organization has warned that the enclave is facing an increased risk of disease. More than 33,000 cases of diarrhea have been reported since mid-October. Half of those suffering are children under the age of 5. There are also reports of nearly 55,000 cases of upper respiratory infections amid incessant bombings, 12,000 cases of skin rash, and over 1,000 cases of chickenpox, a highly infectious disease common among children. These are the names of Palestinian journalists killed since the beginning of this latest conflict. October has been the deadliest month for journalists in more than 3 decades, since the Committee to Protect Journalists began counting statistics in 1992. The CPJ says on average, Palestinian journalists have been killed at a staggering rate of 1 a day since the conflict began. The dead include press at local news outlets and freelancers working for international networks. There are varying figures of how many media personnel have died. The CPJ says at least 39 have been killed since October the 7th. But other press advocacy groups say the death toll could exceed 50, many of whom were killed in Israeli airstrikes. Israel's military insists it's not targeting journalists, but Reporters Without Borders says at least 10 were killed while clearly covering the news. The CPJ and the Ramallah-based Palestinian Journalist Syndicate says there is indeed mounting evidence that Israel is targeting, harassing, beating, and threatening Palestinian reporters.
ويجب على اليونسكو والأمين العام للأمم
UNESCO and the UN Secretary General must intervene immediately to provide journalists with protection and hold Israel accountable for their crimes against Palestinian journalists. More than 60 media organizations have been destroyed, tens of journalist families killed, tens of houses that belong to journalists bombed. More than 22 channels in Gaza have stopped broadcasting. This, in addition to the greater crime, which is the killing of journalists themselves. More than 40 journalists and workers in media institutions have been killed in Israel's bombardment.
For weeks, Palestinian journalists have been at the forefront of the conflict, giving the world a real-time, intimate view of the devastation on their lives and homes. International journalists have been barred by Israel and Egypt from entering Gaza, so Palestinian reporters have taken charge of the narrative. Amid the power being cut and internet blackouts that's forced some stations to stop broadcasting, reporters have been posting updates to their own social media accounts. Journalist Hind Kudari put together this clip of her ordeal this past month.
My colleagues and I are literally homeless right now. We don't have any place to work. It's heartbreaking. We are disconnected from electricity and internet. I'm currently in Al Shifa Hospital. The street is literally damaged. Last night was a deadly night.
مش أول جريمة، هذه جرائم متكررة.
Journalists are working overtime in the most dangerous conditions while trying to keep themselves and their families safe. It's not only taken a severe physical toll, but also a mental one. As you can see from this post from Bisan, with the rising death toll, it's becoming quite clear nowhere is safe for media personnel and civilians in Gaza. Some journalists were even reporting stories when bombs killed their families.
قال عنه جيش الاحتلال انه مكان امن وجاءوا اليه لكن الموت لاحق.
And then there's the matter of each journalist ensuring their own safety. Some, like Hind Kudari and Motaz Azaiza, freelance for foreign networks. They've had to put out online pleas for protective gear, as what they have is either borrowed or too old. They say their goal is to amplify the voices of Gazans. But like it or not, their own experiences have become part of the story that they have a duty to tell. Just last month, sympathy for Israel seemed to be abundant, but now it appears to be evaporating. Hundreds of thousands are taking to the streets every weekend in support of the people of Gaza and urging Israel to implement a ceasefire. And social media has been abuzz with a surge of support for the Palestinians.
I was taught that Israel were the victims and that these Palestinian people were almost like these annoying people who would not leave them alone. But I'm ashamed to say that's what I actually grew up believing. And I was shocked to actually find out the truth and to find out it was actually the other way around, that Israeli people were oppressing and then manipulating the narrative so they could get away with it.
When did you realize that the Zionist mythology of Israel was a lie? When did you start to ask yourself the question of what about Palestine?
I suddenly realized how many loose ends there were and logical inconsistencies that I never confronted until then. And it was when I discovered these loose ends to the Zionist narrative did I fully realize how much I had been deceived throughout my life.
When are we going to open our eyes and see that this is complete and utter attempted genocide?
As I keep researching and learning about what's happening in Palestine right now, I can't stop crying.
Let's get into the numbers. DMR, a tech-savvy AI firm, combed through 1 million posts on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube from October the 7th to the 23rd. Then it used its AI wizardry to sort these posts into pro-Israeli, pro-Palestinian, or neutral categories. On October 7th, the support was almost evenly split between the two sides. Fast forward to October 19th, and pro-Palestinian posts were nearly 4 times more than those favoring Israel. Now, here's the kicker. Public opinion surveys tell a different story. According to a YouGov poll in the U.S. on October 20th, there were 3 times as many pro-Israeli posts as there were pro-Palestinian. And in the UK, a survey revealed equal support for both sides on that same day. But on British social media, the Palestinians were ahead with a 6-1 lead. So why the difference? Well, it has a lot to do with age. Social media skews young, and the younger generation tends to lean more pro-Palestinian. Plus, there's the content factor.
On social media, we see images of Gaza burning to the ground, people screaming from the inside. We don't even know fully the extent to the cruelty. And yet our parents and grandparents, the establishment, the people who actually run our government, the older generation, they're only exposed to this selective reporting. Is it any wonder that we struggle to articulate to the older generation what Palestinians are enduring when they don't even see what we see?
And with those words, we wrap up our program. We've been focusing mainly on events in Gaza over the past month. Find our stories and guest interviews on YouTube. Goodbye for now.